standing there going, how did this happen? Like, we were dumbfounded. We couldn't, it's hard to accept. Like, it was like, we just didn't know how to think about it.
This is Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see his hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences, big and little, God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome. This is episode 118, Feathers from Heaven. Really? Feather from... Are the angels shedding? No. Let's instead, as a visual, you see the Forrest Gump movie, Tom Hanks? Classic, right? It begins and ends with a feather, if you remember, a white feather. Gust of wind comes up, and off it goes, and the music swells, opening credits roll, and this feather begins tumbling and tossing and floating, and then it lands at the feet of one Forrest Gump, the adult version, Tom Hanks, at the bus stop in Savannah, Georgia, and he reaches down and he picks it up, and he sticks it in his book, like a bookmark. He just sticks it in there, and he's reading Curious George, and the movie begins. Commentators have stated that they believe that what the producers were saying with this feather is that there was a belief in a higher power. I mean, are we all just tumbling through space, tumbling? Are we all feathers just being taken by the wind wherever? Is life just a series of events that aren't even connected to one another? Or is there a hand guiding all of this? Or as it says in Mark's gospel, that hand that calmed the wind, that hand. And certainly each week on this podcast, we believe we see that hand at work. And this week it happens to be through feathers, a red, a white, and a blue feather. Say what? Some kind of patriotic thing? No. As Christians, our citizenship is in heaven, and we are going to see these feathers bringing messages from heaven to loved ones. Wait a minute. I think the wind is picking up, and there goes the feather. I'm not going to tell you which color this one is to begin with, but it seems to be heading to... Oh, this is going to be a bad hair day. I'm just telling you right now. Florida and Charles just found the podcast a little bit ago. I was invited back on the national Coast to Coast AM radio show, telling your Touched by Heaven stories, And Charles was listening and thought, well, I've got one of these. Feathers. We're talking feathers.
Hello.
Where are you in Florida?
We are in the Villages. Have you ever heard of that?
Got a friend down there.
Well, great. Well, you should come down here.
Now, I'm hearing a lot of noise in the background. What am I hearing?
That's one of the two birds.
That's one of the two birds that shall come up in the conversation. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
She thinks when people come over or the telephone rings, it's for her.
Oh, that's interesting. What kind of birds are we talking about here?
Well, the birds bond with a person. I don't know how much you know about birds, but if you were to buy a parrot, it would bond with one person and tolerate another, maybe. And this bird is bonded with me, and it is a Moluccan cockatoo.
Okay, that's a big bird, right?
It's the largest cockatoo God makes.
Okay.
And then the bird that bonds with my wife is larger, and I know you've probably heard of those. They're blue and gold macaws.
Okay.
This bird, my bird, actually will occasionally get jealous of my wife and get down and run her out of the room. She wants to be alone with me.
And exactly, and they're not in a cage or anything. They're just wandering around, or what? How do you have that set up?
They have individual cages, and the cages are very large. Both cages are identical, and they're stainless steel, and they're 5 feet across and about 3 feet deep and 6 foot high.
That's a big cage.
Big cages.
But they live a while, too, don't they? Don't they live?
Upwards of 80 years.
What?
I told my wife, I said, look, we'll have to put them in our will because they're going to outlive us. And let's give them to a couple of people we hate. Because
Well, the birds should have their own villages. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a pretty good age. They would qualify to live in the villages.
Well, they really would.
What's your bird's name?
Gator Bird. We did not name her.
Gator Bird.
I'm going to put you on speakerphone.
Yeah, put me on speaker just so I can say hi to Gator Bird. Okay, Gator Bird. Hey, Gator, it's Trapper in Cleveland, Ohio. How you doing down there in the villages? Stunned silence. stuns.
Well,
So watch, I can put this bird to sleep. Most people listen to my podcast, they fall asleep. Hello, bird. Oh, there you go.
no, that's not true, because hearing you the other night with my insomnia, I did not fall asleep. So I'm proof that does not happen. You know, totally, focused on what you were saying and enjoyed it very much.
But so as you were listening, something came to mind, I take, as I was talking about these touched by heaven moments.
That's right.
Okay.
And there's a book swap club. It's called paperbackswap.com. And my wife's been on it for years. And the way that works is you will put a bunch of books on this website that you have that you'd like to swap. And so someone like you will be looking for a certain title and look on that site and see that someone has it. And if it's my wife, well, she, just for the cost, my wife pays for the shipping to get it to your door. And then when she gets rid of that book, she has a credit to acquire one. And then that person she acquires it from pays for that $3 or whatever it is to get it to her. And that's the way that people get books to read, and it's not very costly. And so these birds molt a lot, and we have 4 different colors of feathers that from the size of a book. My wife will save those feathers if they're in great condition and put them in the packaging along with the book and send it to someone as maybe a bookmarker. And my wife
what
has
a cool bookmarker. My gosh.
Not everybody might think that, but we have never had a complaint, but we've only had 2 people write back and say, hey, thanks for the feather.
Yeah.
So
hey, did you put a little note in there? Did you put a note in saying, here, this is from one of our birds or anything like that?
No, she doesn't do that. She just puts the feather in there.
Oh.
And then...
and what color feathers are these again?
Well, the blue and gold has blue and gold. Mm-hmm. And my bird has white and peach.
Okay. You got a tropical bird there, is what it looks like.
The blue and gold is from South America, and the Moluccan is from Malaysia.
Okay.
Like I said, only 2 people have replied. She gets an email back because you can converse with people through that website. And she got this story back from this woman, and she said that, and she was a single parent, and her son was about 12 years old. And the woman relayed the story that when her son was about 6, she had her mother move in with her because she was in poor health and not expected to live a long time. And the little boy was sitting on Grandma's bed, and he was talking with her, and he was asking her direct questions. And he asked her if she was dying, and she said yes. And he asked her if she was going to go to heaven, and she says, well, I really think so. And he says, well, how will I know, Grandma? And she says, one day I'll send you a white feather. And so 6 years passes, and then we send the book with a white feather in it. And so the mother was home from work, and she'd ask her son, she says, oh, I saw that my book came in. Would you mind going and getting it for me? And so the boy was walking back to Mom and unwrapping the book and thumbing and flip through the pages, and this white feather falls out. And they both see the feather fall to the floor, and they both start crying. And that's when she told us the story that Grandma had finally sent grandson the white feather.
That had to be stunning, the odds.
Don't you know it? It freaked us out. I mean, goosebumps. Wow. I'm still to this
right
day.
Now, I got them right now, too, pal. I got them right now.
For a long time, I thought that was the end of the story. And so I was telling anybody and everybody that would listen to that, like, guess what happened to us? And so when I was working before retirement, I was a home inspector, and I dealt a whole lot with real estate agents. And there was occasions when an agent would have to show up at a vacant house and unlock the door for me and let me in. And so this one particular agent showed up to do that. And I said, oh, guess what? Guess what happened to me, if you've got time to listen to this. And I was telling her this story, and she starts crying. And I thought, well, it's really touching her. And she says, let me tell you what that means to me. She says, today is the anniversary of a phone call I got from the military saying that my fiance was killed in Afghanistan. And she says, when my phone rang to receive that news, I was bending over picking up a white feather off the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
I just got chills again.
I know.
God is amazing, isn't he, with his touch?
Absolutely.
That is just a touch.
I mean, if like I was reading your story about being able to see occasionally, and the things that have happened to you, those are definitely more than a touch. That's hey, that's a shake. But if people would just look around at the obvious, it's right in front of them.
I know.
But
well, these are cool stories. They're very cool stories. I appreciate this very much, Charles. I really do.
well, thank you. I appreciate your interest in it.
Yeah.
When I heard you on the radio, I thought, hey, I thought we had a connection there.
No doubt about it. Very
What I
good.
wanna do.
Oh, let
Bye-bye.
me say goodbye to the bird. Can I say goodbye to the
Okay.
bird? Okay. Put me on speaker there.
She's ready.
Okay. Hey, Gator Bird, I got to go. Anything else you want to leave us with? You want to finish with a prayer, Bird? Go ahead.
Say bye-bye. She blew you a kiss.
I heard that little Gator Bird. Thanks, Charles. And what I love about this is that it's a 6-year-old. A 6-year-old who remembers 6 years later when he's 12 years old, it's the white feather. And he's never going to forget it. He's never going to forget that. I'll send you a white feather when I'm in heaven. He's never going to forget that. That's beautiful for that 6-year-old who also got a little Forrest Gump in there too. Bookmark. Yeah, there you got the bookmark again. So, wait a minute. It goes, oh, what color are we going to get this time? This feather seems to be headed to Indiana. I think it's headed to Indiana. And our listener, Larry, who's sitting in his work truck right now. Mr. Larry, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
What do you do?
I'm the operations supervisor for a natural gas company. It's in northern Indiana.
Oh, that's what you wanted to be when you were a little boy. You said, I want to grow up and be one of those.
Yeah, that was it. I was like, man, this, what would be great is chasing around leaking gas.
Yeah,
So
either that
like
or a cowboy. One or the other.
Right.
Not sure
Yeah.
which one it was.
I'm like a spiritual person. I'm really trying to grow deeper into it, but like listening to your podcast has just been helping. I'm probably like 15 or 20 in right now, but it's just really been like helping me connect more spiritually with God. So
No, very good. So when you started hearing this stuff, what came to mind for you?
there was a lady who was talking about dimes. She kept finding all these dimes, and for me, it just one popped into my head, and it was my grandmother passed away, and she's like just a very spiritual person and devout Roman Catholic, like prayer warrior type woman, and she would spend more time at mass and just going into church than really doing anything else. So my grandmother, she was diagnosed with perinatal cancer, and this was probably like sometime in January of this year. And they gave her this diagnosis, and she told my mom, she's like, I don't want to fight it. Don't put any money into trying to get through this. So that's basically what happened. A couple of weeks, and I was there the morning she did pass away, and mom goes to see her. My mom and dad go and see her, and so she whispers something to her, and then like maybe 5 or 10 minutes go by, and then she just passes away. I forget what day it was. February 11th she passed, and they were
Actually,
going
you know what? That's not just any day, by the way.
It's not?
No, that's
What is it?
that's the feast of Our Lady of Lourdes.
Seriously?
Yeah. So that's a great Marian day. Mary appeared to Saint Bernadette in Lourdes, France, which brings about
Wow.
the healing waters and all that kind of good stuff. So that's
that
not
gives me,
just
like,
that's
chills.
Yeah, that's not just any day. That's not just any day. That's a great day.
Wow. So yeah, so that blew my mind right there. But so she passes away, and later in the night, my dad asks my mom. She's like, "Hey, I didn't want to ask, but what did you say to your mom before she passed?" And my mom's like, "Oh, I just told her that her fight here is done, and she doesn't need to hang on anymore, and that she can let go and go home and be with dad and everybody that has passed before her. Take your time. Don't feel like you need to be rushed. But when you get to heaven, send me a sign, and if you could send me a cardinal, which the cardinal is the Indiana state bird, so it's pretty. But maybe she was like kind of setting herself up, like I know this is going to happen. But send me a cardinal, and
Well, the other thing too is a lot of people will claim. There's so many stories about cardinals appearing after somebody passes. It's kind of a sign of a message from heaven when a cardinal shows
really?
up. I know there's somebody I know who they said, please send a cardinal. And the next day they found 18 of them in the backyard. And it's like, wait a minute, we've never even seen a cardinal back. All of a sudden there were 18 of them. So sometimes they make themselves known. Yeah.
Yeah. So she said, send me a cardinal. And just to clarify, she's like, Mom, it's not the bluebird. It's the red one. From when she passed to when her funeral was, it was like 2 weeks. So maybe about a week or so after she passed away, my uncle, my dad's brother, just kind of visit and see them. So and his name's Joe, and Joe's like, well, I've been kind of experimenting and doing this new hobby. I just was going to show you what I've been working on. So he pulls out this vanilla envelope and pulls this picture out, and it's a red cardinal sitting on a branch. He painted it. It's like he's been working on becoming a painter, I guess, and his new hobby has been painting, and he painted a cardinal. And my dad's his jaw just drops. My dad calls my mom. She runs in the room, and then they just both burst into tears. And like my Uncle Joe's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry. They're like, no, you don't understand. And they told him, and like everybody's like in tears at this point. Like Joe was the vehicle of, hey, I made it. Like unbelievable and my dad's telling the story in the eulogy during mass, and everybody's just like, oh, are you kidding me? Like that's like the craziest thing ever. So, and my dad, he loves to throw a little bit of humor in there, telling the congregation, he's like, yeah, that he pulled that picture out, and Jesus looks at grandma, and he's like, I didn't see that coming. I
didn't see it coming.
And I totally forgot about that story, but until I started listening to your podcast, I was like, oh, you know what? This would be a great thing to share with Trapper. So very cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Love your show. Keep doing it. I hope the stories keep flowing in for you, because it really does. It's really a great show, and I really get a lot out of it. I feel like a lot of people do.
Thanks, Larry. There's our red feather, our red cardinal feather. I mean, the odds really, I guess it could be a coincidence when you think about all the times somebody's, walked up to you and handed you an envelope with a painting of a red cardinal. Just days after someone has said, send me a red cardinal. I just, wow, Wait a minute. Yeah, wind's picking up again. Why did I even bother combing this feather? There's only one color left, isn't there? We got the blue. And it seems to be headed to Dallas, Texas. And Marianne.
Is this Marianne? Is this Trapper?
Well, it might be. Let me check my ID. I'm not positive. Seems to be. How you doing?
Fine. How are you?
I'm excellent. Well, how'd you find the podcast, Marianne?
So after my daughter died, I often listened to NDEs with Jesus. That's my way of comforting myself. And I listened to Faith Green, and I just loved that episode. I sent it to a few friends because being Catholic, it just touched on so many of core beliefs, from rosary, medals, everything.
Yeah, it was all theologically correct. And this was, and Faith obviously wasn't coming from faith. She was just saying what happened, but it all lined up perfectly. How our sins are blotted away when we say, I'm sorry, feeling propelled towards heaven. She could hear and feel our prayers. I mean, it was so cool.
And I love the part about the prayers. This reinforced everything I feel like I need to do for her. So
this story revolves around Marianne's daughter, Sapphire.
Like Sapphire was not her birth name. It was Lauren, but at age 10, she said, like, that's just too mundane and an ordinary name. I need something, splashier. So she picked Sapphire. So I thought this might be her. She doesn't like to be conventional. So maybe she was just trying to be different. But she was crying for help.
Help with the stresses of life, with anxiety, with depression.
It's probably so relevant to people today because so many of us parents are struggling with young people struggling with depression. Unless you have it in the family, you just don't know how to handle it.
High school is always stressful, but, Sapphire seemed to be doing okay.
So I thought, wow, we really are making, strides in her in her development. And then her senior year, as she got closer to having to go away to college, it all came crashing down. She started getting really gothic, like dressing dark, painting her nails dark, listening to terrible music. And I didn't know if she was just trying to be kind of like if she was doing it for real or if this was like part of her identity.
And with college, too, Sapphire got great grades, but during those moments of great stress.
Like every time she was going to do a big move, like going from home to college, total anxiety, pre-accepted into this medical program. Again, she's like, oh no, maybe I made the wrong decision to go to medical school. Maybe this is not my calling. And I'm just going to be on a hamster wheel working super hard and, to please my parents and not me. And so all of that anxiety kicked in again. And so she started doing what you would call like a choking game. I don't know what they call it officially, but she would she would choke herself to the point where she passed out.
She would choke herself. This isn't with somebody else, with just herself.
Yes, she would choke herself. The reason why we know exactly how she did it is that she videotaped herself doing it previous times. This was something she did. So on April 19th of 2017, she did that, and she died. She went too far. So I don't like, a lot of family will say, oh, she committed suicide. I'm like, I don't know. Like, she might have been just playing with fate. Like, if I die, I die. If I don't, I don't. I don't think she intentionally killed herself that time.
What was what would the medical people say? What did they call it?
They called it hanging.
So they called it a suicide.
They did. But from finding the videos on her computer, we don't know. She was depressed. She was suffering anxiety. And, my one piece of advice is take it super seriously if your child is struggling. Don't kind of like hope they'll get over it, or maybe thinking that they are doing it for attention or their identity. I mean, it's not worth the risk. You have to take it seriously.
It's such a challenging time. That age is such a challenging time.
It is. And she was such a sweet girl. I feel like God was going to use her in a powerful way. But she was a very kind friend, kind daughter. So my mom is praying at her house, and she's praying at night, and she sees a vision of Sapphire. And Sapphire is in this white dress with a little gold on her waist. And Sapphire is a natural blonde, but she dyed her hair black when she got depressed, So, but in this vision, she came as her natural blonde, and she was pointing to her dress. So then the next day, my mom calls me and says, Marianne, I had this dream. What dress are you putting on Sapphire for her casket? And I said, oh, I picked out one of her favorite little black ones. And she's like, oh, how can you dress your daughter in black? That's terrible. No, I had a vision of her and she needs to be in white. And I said, Mom, I only had 2 dresses to pick from. You're right. This was ridiculous for me to think of putting black. And my mom's like, Marianne, you're going to put her on white. She visited me. She wants to be in white. And when I finally found the dress, I realized this was the dress she had her confirmation in. And it was just the most beautiful dress. And it had gold. I was looking at it carefully, saying, Mom, this is her confirmation dress. And that was the dress my mom saw in her vision because it had gold along the waist.
And she still fit into it. That's pretty good.
Yeah, Sapphire is a stunningly beautiful girl. Brilliant girl, but also like stunningly beautiful. Like she was 5'6" and 100 pounds. Like she was just a really beautiful girl. But anyway, so she still fit into it. And we got her that outfit, and that's
just to say that's a great sign. You get a sign like you wear the white. I think that's just a beautiful sign. It really is.
And that's why my mom's like, oh, I'm fine, Marianne. She's okay. I saw her. She was glowing. And so I'm like, okay, hold on to that. So then we had a pre-planned trip to Hong Kong on June 24th. And we decided we should go because this will be a good time for the family my other's Aria, for us to heal, and we need to go. meanwhile, we have a dog named Sparky, and Sparky has a large tumor in her throat. And as we were getting closer to that date of having to leave for Hong Kong, Sparky started to decline, and we don't want her to die while my parents are taking care of her. So the night before our trip to Hong Kong, we decide, okay, we're going to take her to the vet the next day. In the morning, I find a vet that's able to do it. My husband, Timothy, he's in the backyard digging a hole. We're going to fly out to Hong Kong. We have to be at the airport at 11 or something like that. So we don't have a whole lot of time. So I take her to the vet. I'm petting Sparky and I'm praying, okay, Sapphire, come and greet Sparky. I know pets go too. And now you have a little friend with you. Come and greet Sparky. And so I'm praying this the whole time. We rush Sparky home to bury her. And so we gather all the family together. We go through the backyard. We all cross the same path and we bury Sparky. We say a few prayers. We're all in a rush. We have this big trip to go on. And so we say a few prayers and we turn around, and within 5 feet from us, like right there, right exactly the path that we had all just crossed, there's about 80 to 100 blue jay feathers, all upright and all in a circular pattern. And we're just standing there going how did this get here? We've only been a few minutes praying, and just 80 to 100 feathers.
Standing up?
Yes.
I mean, like on their points with their feathers up.
Yes, in a circular pattern. And so we're all standing, when something so irrational, so illogical happens, it's so hard for the human brain to really accept it. So we're just standing there going, how did this happen? We were dumbfounded. We couldn't, it's hard to accept. It was we just didn't know how to think about it. And
because it's impossible. How do you wrap your head around something so impossible?
It was so impossible. So then my husband's he's like, I've been crossing this path back and forth, with the shovel, digging this hole. I assure you, it hasn't been here. And I said, Timothy, we all passed the path to pray for Sparky. It just got here. So Timothy's like, well, I got to put the shovel away. I got to get going. And he starts to run off. And I said, no, you come here and witness this. My husband has faith, but he's a doctor. So he's very scientific oriented. So come and witness this. You come and look at this.
This does not compute. I'm leaving.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like, that's why people, struggle with faith, because when things hit them, sometimes they don't want to look at it.
It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit my belief system. I gotta go. And atheists are not that your husband is, but that's why when something so miraculous happens, they just put it on the shelf and say, well, no one can comprehend that or understand that, and they try to move on. It's like, no, look at it, stare at it, figure that out.
Exactly. And so I said, do you see any feathers that are not upright? And he's like, no. And he's quiet, no. I said, Timothy, look at this. How can we explain this? And he's like, I don't know. And so,
well, were they planted almost in the ground, but not?
When we turned around, all of us, there was there were 4 of us: my husband, my daughter, me, and my mom. We turn around, the feathers are right there, and that moment we all turned, they were all perfectly there, and they were all in this circular pattern. Within seconds, as we were looking oh my gosh, some are starting to blow away. But they were all upright, even, until they blew away, they were upright. None of them were flat, lying flat. They were in the blades of grass, they were acting like blades of grass. And that was the miracle part. Timothy, look, do you see one that's flat, that's not upright, like a blade of grass? And he said, no. And so we didn't have our cameras on us. And I was like, by the time I go get my camera and come back, I'm not going to do this photo justice, because they're blowing away by the second. As I'm standing here, they're starting to blow away. So I said, Aria, let's grab some feathers, to keep as a keepsake. But one thing that was really important, the moment I turned around and I saw this circular pattern of feathers, I heard in my soul, I heard Sapphire say to me, I got her. Like Sapphire was saying, I got Sparky. That was her sign to me. I got her. So that's what I heard in my heart. So that's what I heard. So that's why everyone's like, what do we do with this?
At this point in your life, do blue jay feathers mean anything to you?
Yes and no. Like Sapphire's name is Sapphire, so it's ironic she picked a blue fox bird, right?
Okay.
That was one thing. But in our family, she was the bird of our family. Aria is the kitty cat. Like if I got them, like like when they were little girls, if I got them a little something, I would get Sapphire, like let's say a necklace with a bird on it, and I would get Aria one with a kitty cat. Like I don't know, some families, you know how you have like
Yeah,
a
I
little.
understand. No, I understand. You have
So
themes. You have themes. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So Sapphire was the bird in our family. She loved birds. We have two cockatiels as her pet, that I still take care of till this day. So she was a bird lover. So that was beautiful. And I held on to that. Like, okay, she's okay. Like this doesn't, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Because I was really worried about her soul.
But there's more to this story, isn't there?
Yes. Yes. So I've always been a firm believer in the afterlife. So I've always felt like as long as my baby is okay, I can deal with the loss. My baby's with God. That's the most important. That's the goal. We ran through the finish line. So I was going to focus on that and not my grief. And so that sustained me. Like, okay, she's with God. She's okay. But then like in October, my husband and we went to a medical conference in Washington, D.C., and my brother lives there. And we were just visiting a cathedral. And so I was kind of having this concerned feeling as I'm walking through the cathedral, like, I don't know, she might not be okay. Like, human doubts of a mom who just wants to really make sure her baby's okay in heaven. So I'm walking around kind of checking in and thinking, I don't feel like she's 100% okay. But that night I go to sleep and I have a dream with Sapphire and she's in a white room and she's dressed in her gothic self with her hair and the whole thing. And she walks up to me and she says, Mommy, I don't feel God's love. And I said, what do you mean you don't feel God's love? She's like, no, Mommy, I don't. I said, yes, you do. Yes, you do. You feel God's love. And she's like, no, Mommy, I don't. I said, yes, you do, sweetie. You feel God's love. She's like, no. And then I said, sweetie, just go around the corner and there's heaven. Just go around the corner and you're going to be in heaven. And she says, no, Mommy, I can't. And then I wake up. And then I was like, oh no, this is not good. But luckily, as a Catholic, I'm like, okay, maybe this is purgatory. I can deal with this. This is, not, I just need to know ultimately my daughter's okay. Like I can deal with purgatory. So, the next day, my husband and I were sightseeing, but in my mind, the whole time I'm just praying, Jesus, I need a sign. This is not good. I'm not going to deal with this well if I don't have a sign from you. Like this hit me hard, and I just need a sign that she's okay. Like please, Jesus, give me a sign that she's okay. And I'm praying this throughout the day. And so the next morning, we have this super early flight to Dallas. And we arrive in Dallas and we call an Uber driver to pick us up. And this young man picks us up and he's in his early 20s. We slide in the car and there is a blue jay feather taped to his dashboard. And I was like, oh.
What? What?
Yes. And I just lit up right away, like, oh, this might be, And so we're driving along and we're talking a little bit. And I said, excuse me, can you tell me the story behind your blue jay feather? And he says, he's like, it's the craziest thing. I walk up to my car and this feather is right there, right in front of my car, just this one blue jay feather. And I picked it up and I put it in my car because everyone knows that blue jay feathers are a good omen from God. And I was like, I never heard that before. So I was like, wow. And then he says, God is just so great. He's such a loving God that he gives us signs of his love in different creative ways. And this is one of the ways he does it, through blue jay feathers. And I said, wow. I said, I need to tell you my story. So I tell him the story of Sparky and Sapphire. and the blue jay feathers. And he gets really quiet and he says, ma'am, I'm so sorry for your loss, but I just want to say that Jesus loves you and you need to see it from Jesus's perspective. And I was like, wow, that's wisdom. I thought, what are the odds that out of the hundreds of Uber drivers that we could have had pick us up, I get one with a feather. But I thought, wow, how amazing is God that he did this for me. He answered my prayer and he sent a Christian. Not only did someone have a feather Tuesday, but it was a Christian who gave me a really good message. So yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of wow in there. There's a lot of wow. Well, God bless you. I mean, it's nice to get that reassurance, isn't it? It's nice to get that reassurance.
Like it's important to grieve death. The loss is there, but at the same time, we shouldn't be destroyed by it because, I mean, if we really believe in God, then our loved ones are in a better place.
Yeah.
So we can grieve the loss, but not be destroyed by the grief, because we have to have faith that they are in a wonderful place. And
yeah, we come here to go back.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful, Marianne. God bless you for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you for talking with me. I enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marianne. I'm trying to imagine 80 to 100 blue jay feathers just standing up like grass in the grass, and that she was the bird girl, right? She was the bird. It's just so. And then the blue jay feather on a dashboard, really? If that isn't just if that isn't just God again saying, I'm here, how do you not believe? That's what woke me up. These kinds of things woke me up, and I continue to pray that they help fortify and, of course, wake up people as well. But how do you hear the blue jay story without just going, wow, it's so beautiful, God doing what God does. And here we go again. And then someday it's us. Someday it's going to be us sending these messages. Wouldn't that be kind of a cool thing to be a part of, right? All right. Somebody up there want to calm the winds? Anybody? Thank you so much. Now then, thank you so much. Oh, I need your story as well. What's your encounter story? Get a hold of me at touchedbyheaven.net. And my Patreon shout out this week goes to Roy Woolery. Roy just found us from listening to Coast AM. He's been binging. He's gone to patreon.com and looked for Trapper Jack and is now supporting us on a monthly basis. Or you can come right here to episode 118 of touchedbyheaven.net, and there's a link on through. So if these podcast episodes are a blessing to you, would you consider helping us out on a monthly basis through Patreon? I thank you for that. I will see you next week here at Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack. Gator bird.